The training facility on orbital station Kravesh 9 hummed with the usual pre-session anxiety. I'd been stationed here for 3 cycles now, observing the combat preparation protocols of various species seeking admission into the Galactic Defense Corps. My name is Velthar, and I serve as the documentation specialist for xenobiological assessment. Basically, I watch aliens try not to embarrass themselves during basic training and write reports about it. Today was different. The humans had arrived. I'd heard stories, naturally. Everyone had. These bizarre primates from a death world called Earth had somehow stumbled into faster-than-light travel about 6 standard years ago. Since then, they'd been making waves, causing confusion, and generally behaving in ways that made the rest of the galaxy deeply uncomfortable. They ate poison for recreation. They kept predators as companions. They literally threw themselves out of aircraft for fun. But combat training? That would be interesting. The observation deck was packed. Word had spread fast. Instructor Kravesh, a Thornian veteran with 4 arms and enough scars to tell 1,000 stories, stood in the center of the training arena. The space was massive, designed to accommodate everything from the towering Megrith warriors to the diminutive Pixian scouts. Today, it felt almost intimate. 20 humans stood in formation. Well, stood might be generous. They shifted, fidgeted, whispered to each other. One was actually chewing something, jaw working methodically. Another kept rolling her shoulders like she was preparing for a mating dance. "Attention!" Kravesh's voice boomed through the arena, translated instantly into a dozen languages by the facility's systems. The humans snapped into something resembling order. "Welcome to Kravesh 9 Basic Combat Assessment. You have been selected by your planetary government to represent Earth in the Galactic Defense Corps selection trials. What happens here will determine if your species is suitable for military integration." One of the humans, a male with close-cropped dark hair and a crooked nose that suggested it had been broken at least twice, raised his hand. Kravesh's eye stalks swiveled toward him. "Speak." "Yeah, hi. Quick question. When you say suitable for military integration, does that mean you're deciding if we get to join your space army, or if you're deciding whether to, preemptively deal with us before we become a problem?" The observation deck went silent. You could have heard a whisper moth breathe. Kravesh's mandibles clicked together slowly. In Thornian body language, this indicated either deep thought or preparation to remove someone's head. Possibly both. "Your designation, human?" "Marcus Kane, sir. And I'm genuinely asking, because the answer kind of affects my performance strategy here." A female human with bright red hair tied back in a complex knot made a sound that might have been a strangled laugh or a cough. I'd read that humans had over 40 distinct types of laughter, each conveying different social meanings. Terrifying creatures. "This is an assessment," Kravesh said slowly, "not an execution." "Cool, cool, cool." Marcus nodded several times. "Just checking. We've had some weird first contact situations, so I wanted to clarify. Proceed." In my notes, I wrote, "Humans appear to lack fundamental survival instincts regarding authority figures. Possible cognitive deficiency?" Kravesh continued, as if the interruption hadn't happened. Perhaps he was practicing the legendary Thornian patience. Today's assessment focuses on unarmed combat principles. In space warfare, you will encounter situations where weapons are unavailable, damaged, or tactically inadvisable. Hull breaches, civilian zones, diplomatic venues. In these scenarios, you must rely on your biology, your training, and your ability to think. He gestured with 2 of his arms, and the arena floor shifted. Holographic projections sprang to life, showing various combat scenarios, boarding actions, close-quarter engagements, zero-gravity grappling. "Weapons are useless here," Kravesh declared, his translator amplifying his words with dramatic weight. Your body is your weapon. Your mind is your arsenal. Everything else is a crutch for the weak. The humans watched with varying degrees of interest. Some nodded thoughtfully. Others looked skeptical. One, a shorter female with dark skin and intricate patterns shaved into her hair, actually smiled. Not a pleasant smile. The kind of smile that suggested she knew something you didn't. Her name, I would later learn, was Zara Okonkwo. Remember that name. It becomes important. We will begin with a demonstration, Kravesh announced. I require a volunteer. The humans looked at each other. Several hands started to rise, then paused, then rose again. Finally, Marcus stepped forward. I'll go. Excellent. Kravesh moved into the center of the designated combat circle, a raised platform about 15 meters in diameter. The rules are simple. Attempt to force me out of the circle or render me unable to continue. Use any physical means at your disposal. The exercise ends when one of us yields or exits the boundary. Marcus climbed onto the platform. He was tall for a human, I'd been told, about 1.9 meters. Still significantly shorter than Kravesh's 2.7 meters. The Thornian had 4 arms, each capable of lifting approximately 300 kilograms. His exoskeleton could withstand impacts that would pulverize most organic tissue. This was going to be over quickly. Begin! Marcus moved forward in a loose, relaxed stance. Kravesh watched him approach, probably analyzing the human's gait, looking for weaknesses, preparing to deliver a swift and educational defeat. Then, Marcus did something unexpected. He stopped just outside Kravesh's reach and started talking. So, I've got to say, this is a pretty intimidating setup you've got here. 4 arms, natural. Armor plating. About 800 pounds of murder potential. Meanwhile, I'm basically a hairless monkey who figured out how to make fire. Seems unfair. Kravesh's mandibles clicked. Confusion this time. Your assessment is accurate. Do you yield? Oh no, I'm just making conversation. See where I come from? We've got this thing called talking your way out of a fight. It's a legitimate strategy. So I'm thinking, maybe we don't do this? Maybe we shake hands. Well, hand-to-claw situation. And we call it good? The assessment requires physical demonstration. Right. Totally get that. Marcus circled slowly, hands loose at his sides. But here's the thing. I'm looking at you, and I'm seeing a professional, a warrior, someone who's earned every one of those scars through actual combat. And I'm thinking, do you really want to hurt me? Like, genuinely? Because I've got to be honest, I'm not that important. Just a guy from Detroit who signed up for this because the pay was insane. And I wanted to see space. You hurt me. That's paperwork for you. Medical reports. Maybe an interstellar incident if my government gets pissy about it. In the observation deck, someone muttered, is he trying to psychologically manipulate a Thornian war veteran? Yes, he was. And astonishingly, Kravesh hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough for his stance to shift. His weight to redistribute slightly. Marcus moved. I've watched thousands of hours of combat footage from hundreds of species. I've seen Krynax battle dancers who move like liquid metal. I've observed hive warriors coordinating attacks with telepathic precision. I once watched a void monk dismantle 12 opponents without apparent effort, but I'd never seen anything quite like what Marcus did. He didn't attack Kravesh's strong points, didn't try to match strength with strength. Instead, he dropped low, impossibly low, and swept one leg out in a wide arc that caught Kravesh just above the joint, where the Thornian's lower right leg met his body. Thornians are top-heavy. Their center of gravity is high. It's a known weakness, but one that's almost impossible to exploit because of their reach and strength advantage. Almost impossible. Kravesh tipped. Just slightly. Just enough. Marcus was already moving, rolling past the Thornian's reaching arms, coming up behind him. He jumped, got both arms around Kravesh's neck region, and used his entire body weight as leverage. Thornians don't have the same kind of circulatory system as humans. Choking them is ineffective. But Marcus wasn't trying to choke him. He was using himself as a counterweight, pulling Kravesh further off balance. Two of Kravesh's arms reached back, trying to grab the human. Marcus released, dropped, rolled again. He came up at Kravesh's feet, and this time he did something I'd never seen in formal combat training. He grabbed one of the Thornian's legs and bit him. Not hard enough to do real damage. The translator picked up Kravesh's startled exclamation, which roughly translated to, "What in the seven breeding hells?" The distraction lasted maybe half a second, but Marcus used it. He pushed, using leverage and angle instead of strength, and Kravesh's foot touched the edge of the circle. Technically, that was a boundary violation. The arena went absolutely silent. Marcus backed away, hands raised. "Sorry about the bite. That's probably not regulation. But you did say use any physical means at our disposal, and technically, teeth are physical, so I figured it fell under the spirit of the rules, if not the exact letter of the law. And look, I'm just going to stop talking now." Kravesh stared at him. All four eyes focused with an intensity that would have made most species evacuate their waste elimination systems. Then he laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together in a cement mixer, but it was definitely laughter. "You bit me." "Yeah, that happened. I'm not proud of it." "Well, actually, I'm kind of proud of it. It worked, so there's that." "In 16 cycles of instruction," Kravesh said slowly, "across 47 species and 2,300 individual trainees, no one has ever bitten me. First time for everything?" Kravesh looked at the other humans, who were watching with expressions ranging from horror to barely suppressed amusement. "Next volunteer." Zara stepped forward immediately. "I'll go." Oh, this was going to be interesting. She climbed onto the platform with fluid grace. Where Marcus had been loose and chatty, Zara was compact and focused. Her eyes tracked Kravesh's movements with predatory precision. "Begin." Zara didn't talk, didn't posture. She moved forward in a low stance, weight balanced, hands open. Kravesh, learning from his previous encounter, didn't hesitate. He struck fast, one arm lancing out in a blow that would have sent most creatures flying. Zara wasn't there. She'd shifted her weight, turned her body, let the blow pass close enough that I could see the fabric of her uniform ripple from the air displacement. Then she stepped in, inside Kravesh's guard, and drove her elbow into the joint of his upper left arm. Thornian exoskeletons are strong, but joints are always vulnerabilities. The blow landed with precision that suggested either extensive anatomical knowledge or really good instincts. Kravesh's arms spasmed, not disabled, but compromised. He swung with two other arms. Zara ducked under one, deflected another with a movement that turned the Thornian's own strength against him, redirecting the blow past her head. Then she did something that made everyone in the observation deck lean forward. She smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even a particularly human smile. It was the expression of someone who'd found exactly what they were looking for. "You're good," she said, voice calm, despite the violence. "Real good. Bet you've won every one of these demonstrations, yeah? Put the trainees in their place. Show them what real combat looks like." Kravesh struck again. Zara moved like water, like smoke, like something that couldn't quite be pinned down. "But here's the thing about demonstrations," she continued, still moving, still evading. "They're performances. You're trying to teach, not trying to win. There's a difference." "Bold words," Kravesh growled, "from someone who hasn't landed a significant blow." "Oh, I'm not trying to beat you. Can't, probably. You've got reach, strength, armor, experience. All I've got is stubbornness and spite. And let me tell you, I've got those in abundance." She ducked under another strike, this time running her hand along Kravesh's arm as it passed, feeling the texture of his exoskeleton. "What I'm doing," Zara said, "is learning. See, you've shown us how strong you are, how tough, how skilled. That's valuable information. But you've also shown us how you move, how you think, where you put your weight when you strike." Kravesh paused, just for a fraction of a second. The same kind of hesitation that had cost him against Marcus, but for a different reason. This human was analyzing him, mid-combat, while actively defending herself from strikes that could break bones. "And now," Zara said softly, "I'm going to show you something we learned back home. We call it the principle of acceptable losses." She stepped into his next strike, deliberately, let it hit her shoulder. The impact sent her spinning, clearly hurt, but the spin became part of her movement. She used the momentum, came around low, and drove her fist into the side of Kravesh's leg with everything she had. Then she dropped, flat on her back, gasping. Kravesh looked down at her, concerned now rather than combative. "You're injured." "Yeah," Zara wheezed. "Probably. Worth it, though." "Why?" She grinned up at him, blood on her teeth from where she'd bitten her lip during the impact. "Because now I know exactly how hard you can hit, and I'm still conscious. Which means, if you weren't holding back, you would have killed me. Which means you are holding back. Which means, in a real fight, you'd have limits we could exploit." The silence in the observation deck was profound. "Also," Zara added, "I totally landed a significant blow to your leg. So I win on a technicality." Kravesh extended a hand, helped her up. His mandibles were clicking in what I was starting to recognize as Thornian amusement. "Your species is insane." "Yeah, we get that a lot." The rest of the session continued in similar fashion. Each human who volunteered brought something different. Some relied on speed. Others used creativity. One, a massive male named Dmitri, who looked like he was carved from granite, simply absorbed Kravesh's strikes and kept coming forward like a mobile wall, eventually forcing the Thornian to the edge of the circle through sheer, persistent pressure. But it was the pattern that fascinated me. Every human, regardless of their approach, did something unexpected. They talked during combat. They used psychological tactics. They analyzed and adapted in real time. They accepted injury as a tool rather than a failure. And they smiled. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough that it became noticeable. They enjoyed the challenge and found something appealing in the struggle itself. By the time the session ended, Kravesh looked thoughtful. "Tomorrow," he announced, "we will continue assessment with weapons training. I want to see how you perform with standard armaments." Marcus raised his hand again. "So just to clarify, tomorrow we get actual weapons? Like the kind that shoot things?" "Correct." "Cool. That seems like a responsible decision with absolutely no potential for chaos." As the humans filed out, chattering among themselves, laughing about their injuries, already forming the kind of bonded unit that usually took weeks to develop, I finished my notes. Assessment Day 1. Humans display unconventional combat psychology, lack standard fear responses, demonstrate high pain tolerance, and adaptive strategic thinking. Recommend continued observation, possible tactical applications if properly directed. Definite hazard, if not. In retrospect, that last line was perhaps the most accurate prediction I've ever made, because tomorrow they were getting weapons. And I had a feeling that "weapons are useless here" was about to become a deeply ironic statement. The next morning cycle brought a different kind of energy to the training facility. Word had spread beyond just the observation specialists. Officers from 3 different fleets had shown up. A collective mind representative hovered in the corner, its 6 component bodies linked in their weird telepathic network. Even a judicator had arrived, those ancient beings who supposedly maintained galactic law, though I'd never actually seen one enforce anything. Everyone wanted to see what the humans would do with weapons. Kravesh stood in the center of the arena again, but the space had been transformed. Overnight, weapon racks lined the walls, displaying standard Galactic Defense Corps armaments, plasma rifles, kinetic accelerators, energy blades, shock grenades, everything a properly trained soldier might need. The humans entered in the same loose formation as yesterday, but I noticed something different. They moved with more confidence now. Yesterday, they'd been nervous, uncertain of their place. Today, they walked like they belonged here. Zara's shoulder was wrapped in medical gel, the kind that would heal the deep tissue bruising from Kravesh's strike. She moved carefully, but steadily. Marcus had a slight limp from where he'd twisted his ankle during his acrobatics. Dmitri had tape around 3 of his fingers. None of them seemed particularly bothered by their injuries. Today's assessment, Kravesh began, will test your ability to utilize standard armaments in combat scenarios. You will face simulated opponents, environmental hazards, and tactical challenges. The weapons are set to training mode. They will cause pain, but not permanent injury. Probably. That probably is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence, muttered a human female whose name badge read Torres. Kravesh's eye stalks focused on her. Pain is an excellent teacher. You will learn quickly, or you will learn painfully. Ideally, both. He gestured to the weapon racks. Select your armaments. You have 5 minutes to familiarize yourselves with the equipment. Then, we begin. The humans moved to the racks with what I can only describe as disturbing enthusiasm. They picked up weapons, tested weights, examined firing mechanisms. Several of them were clearly familiar with the basic principles of directed energy weapons, which made sense given their species' recent technological advances. But then they started doing something odd. They were selecting weapons that didn't match their body types or apparent combat styles. Dmitri, the massive powerhouse who'd used pure strength yesterday, picked up a lightweight precision rifle designed for long-range engagement. Torres, who demonstrated quick reflexes and agility, grabbed a heavy assault cannon that weighed almost as much as she did. Marcus picked up 2 shock grenades and nothing else. Human Kane? Kravesh called out. You are aware that grenades alone constitute insufficient armament for sustained combat? Oh, I'm aware. I've got a plan, though. That statement does not inspire confidence. Yeah, I get that a lot, too. Zara had selected a simple energy blade, the kind used for close-quarter combat. She activated it, and the blue glow illuminated her face as she tested its weight and balance. Satisfied, she nodded to herself. Time, Kravesh announced. First scenario, urban combat simulation. Multiple hostiles, civilian presence, limited visibility. Your objective is to secure the designated safe zone and protect non-combatants. Begin. The arena floor shimmered, and suddenly we were looking at a holographic cityscape. Buildings rose around the humans, alleyways twisted between structures, and simulated civilians scattered throughout the environment. Enemy targets, marked with red identification tags, moved through the space in tactical patterns. Standard doctrine called for establishing a defensive perimeter, identifying threats, and systematically eliminating them while minimizing civilian casualties. The humans split into 4 groups immediately and went in completely different directions. They're fragmenting their force, someone in the observation deck said. That's tactically unsound against superior numbers. I wasn't so sure. I'd seen what these creatures could do when rules didn't apply. Marcus's group, 3 humans including himself, moved toward what appeared to be the most heavily defended position. He still only had his 2 grenades. The other 2, a male named Jackson and a female named Park, had actual weapons at least. They approached a corner where 6 enemy targets waited in ambush. Standard procedure would be suppressing fire, followed by flanking maneuvers. Marcus threw both his grenades, not at the enemies, at the building next to them. The shock grenades detonated against the structure's base, and the holographic building, programmed to respond to weapons fire realistically, cracked. A support column failed. The entire facade tilted forward, forcing the enemy targets to scatter or be crushed. While they scattered, Jackson and Park eliminated them with precise fire. Marcus walked through the chaos, picked up a fallen enemy's weapon, and grinned. "See? Plan." "That was insane," Jackson said. "That was efficient. There's a difference." Meanwhile, Dimitri's group had taken a completely different approach. Despite having the precision rifle, he hadn't fired a single shot. Instead, he'd climbed to a high position, overlooking a plaza where civilians were surrounded by enemy targets. The scenario was designed to be nearly impossible. Firing into the plate, the group would risk hitting civilians. Waiting for clear shots would take too long. It was meant to teach the importance of patience and precision under pressure. Dimitri aimed his rifle at a decorative fountain in the plaza's center and fired. The plasma bolt superheated the water instantly. Steam exploded outward, creating a massive cloud that engulfed the entire plaza. In the confusion, two other members of his group, moving under cover of the steam, extracted the civilians while the enemy targets fired blindly into the mist. By the time the steam cleared, the civilians were safe, and the enemies were exposed, the easy targets for the rest of the team. "They're using the environment as a weapon," the collective mind representative observed, all 6 of its bodies speaking in eerie unison. Not just moving through it, but actively manipulating it to create tactical advantages. Zara's group had the most direct approach, but executed it in the most unexpected way. They'd encountered a heavily fortified position, the kind that would require sustained assault to breach. Instead of assaulting it, they went around, found a maintenance access point, and came up through the floor behind the enemy position. Zara led the way, energy blade active, moving with that same predatory focus she'd shown yesterday. But she didn't attack immediately. She waited until all 4 members of her team were in position. Then she did something that made me laugh out loud, despite my professional demeanor. She knocked on the wall. The enemy targets turned toward the sound, confused, programmed to respond to threats, but not quite sure how to classify a polite knock. Zara's team struck from behind, eliminating the entire position in less than 4 seconds. Torres's group took the heavy assault approach, but not in the way anyone expected. She'd complained about the weapon's weight, but now I understood why she'd chosen it. She set it up on a bipod, creating a fixed firing position that dominated a key intersection. Then she walked away from it, left it there, automated and tracking targets through its sensor suite. While enemy targets focused on the obvious threat of the cannon, Torres and her team moved through side routes, hitting from unexpected angles, using the distraction to devastating effect. The scenario ended in 12 minutes. Standard completion time for experienced squads was 30 to 45 minutes. Most trainee squads failed entirely. The humans had not only succeeded, but had done so with 0 civilian casualties and minimal ammunition expenditure. Kravesh stood in silence, all 4 eyes scanning the after-action data. Finally, he spoke. "How did you coordinate? You had no communication devices, no shared tactical network." Marcus shrugged. "We talked about it beforehand, made some basic plans. Then we trusted each other to adapt." "You trusted?" Kravesh's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Without constant communication? Without centralized command?" "Sure. I mean, Jackson might be an idiot, but he's a competent idiot. I trust him to not die in stupid ways." "Thanks, man. That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me." "Don't get emotional. It's embarrassing." The second scenario was zero-gravity combat in a damaged spacecraft. The humans adapted immediately, using their weapons' recoil for maneuvering, creating debris clouds for cover. And at one point, Torres used her massive assault cannon as a battering ram instead of a gun, propelling herself into an enemy cluster and scattering them like bowling pins. The third scenario was nighttime combat with limited visibility. The humans complained loudly about not being able to see, then proceeded to win anyway by using sound to track targets, throwing objects to create distractions, and in one memorable moment, Marcus convinced an enemy target to surrender by describing in graphic detail exactly how he'd killed the target's simulated squadmates. Psychological warfare is technically warfare, he explained when Kravesh questioned the tactic. By the fourth scenario, a multi-level facility assault, the humans had stopped treating it like a test and started treating it like a game. They were calling out to each other, making jokes, celebrating successful tactics with elaborate hand-slapping rituals that apparently meant something in their culture, and they were winning, consistently, decisively. The observation deck had gone from curious to concerned to something approaching awe. "They're not following any standard tactical doctrine," one of the fleet officers said. "It's chaos." "No!" The judicator spoke for the first time, its ancient voice like wind through dead trees. "It's adaptation. They're not following doctrine because doctrine is predictable. They're creating new solutions in real time." Kravesh called an end to the scenarios. The humans gathered in the center of the arena, sweating, bruised, clearly exhausted, but equally clearly energized. "Final assessment," Kravesh announced. "Free combat, all of you against me, full weapons, no restrictions except boundary violations." The humans looked at each other, several grinned. "That seems unwise," Zara said carefully. "Sir, with respect, we've got weapons now, and there's 20 of us. And I have 16 cycles of combat experience across 47 war zones. I have weapons as well, and I have something you lack, complete understanding of your limitations." Kravesh selected a plasma rifle and an energy blade. "Yesterday I was teaching. Today I will show you the difference between training and actual combat." Marcus raised his hand. "Just to be absolutely clear, you're asking us to actually try to beat you? No holding back?" "Correct. And you're not going to hold back either?" "Also correct." "Okay, cool. Just checking, because that seems like a terrible idea, and I wanted to make sure we were all on the same page about it being a terrible idea before we committed to the terrible idea. Your commentary is noted. Begin!" What followed was 7 minutes of the most chaotic, creative, and frankly terrifying combat I've ever witnessed. The humans didn't charge in. They scattered, using the arena's obstacles for cover. Kravesh moved to intercept the nearest group, but they weren't there anymore. They'd split again, forcing him to choose targets. He chose Dmitri, the biggest threat, and opened fire. Dmitri absorbed the hits on his armor, using his body to shield 2 smaller team members who returned fire from cover. But it was suppressing fire, not meant to hit, meant to distract. Kravesh realized too late. 3 humans had flanked him, coming from different angles. He spun, blocking an energy blade strike from Zara, returning fire at Torres, forcing Jackson to dive for cover. But while he dealt with them, Marcus had climbed. Somehow, impossibly, he'd gotten above Kravesh, using the obstacle course elements to reach a high position. He dropped, literally just dropped onto Kravesh's back, wrapping arms and legs around the Thornian's torso, blocking his vision, making him a target. Kravesh roared, reaching back to grab the human. Marcus let go, dropped, rolled away. A park was already there, sliding between Kravesh's legs, firing upward at joint seams. The Thornian blocked, spun, swept his blade in an arc that would have decapitated Park if she hadn't ducked with microseconds to spare. But now, his back was exposed. Zara was there, blade ready for a disabling strike. Kravesh proved why he'd survived 16 cycles of war. He reversed his spin, caught Zara's blade on his own, used his superior strength to force her back. His plasma rifle came up, tracking toward her center mass. Dmitri hit him like a freight train. The impact sent both of them tumbling. Kravesh recovered first, training and experience overcoming surprise. He leveled his rifle at Dmitri's head from point-blank range. "Yield," he commanded. "Yeah," Dmitri grunted. "But they don't." Kravesh's eyes widened. In his focus on the immediate threat, he'd lost track of the other humans. All 19 of them had surrounded him. Every weapon pointed at his position. If this were real combat, he'd be dead 20 times over. Slowly, Kravesh lowered his weapon. "I yield." Marcus, bleeding from a cut over his eye, grinned. "So here's the thing about weapons being useless. They're not. They're extremely useful. But you know what's more useful? 20 people who trust each other enough to use themselves as bait, as shields, as distractions. Who'll take a hit to create an opening? Who'll sacrifice their own glory for the team's success? You used tactics designed for warfare against peers," Kravesh said slowly. "Not training exercises. You fought to win, not to learn." "Oh, we learned," Zara said, wincing as she prodded her re-injured shoulder. "We learned that you're dangerous, skilled, and experienced. We learned that in a fair fight, you'd probably kill most of us. So we made it unfair." "That's not honorable combat." Torres laughed, a sharp bark of sound. "Sir, with respect, honor is what you worry about after you've won. Dead people don't get to be honorable. They're just dead." The observation deck was in chaos. Arguments broke out between different species about whether the humans had demonstrated legitimate tactics or barbaric gang violence. The collective mind was having what appeared to be an argument with itself. The judicator just watched, expression unreadable. Kravesh deactivated his weapons and set them aside. He looked at the humans, really looked at them, with something I couldn't quite identify in his body language. "You are cleared for advanced training," he said finally. "All of you. Effective immediately." Cheers erupted from the human group. They collapsed into their hand-slapping rituals, embracing each other, celebrating with the kind of uninhibited emotion that made most species deeply uncomfortable. "But understand this," Kravesh continued, voice cutting through the celebration. "What you displayed today is dangerous, not just to your enemies, but to yourselves. You take risks that would kill lesser beings. You treat pain as currency, and your own bodies as disposable tools. This will earn you victories. It will also earn you casualties." "We know," Marcus said quietly, the levity gone from his voice. "Trust me, we know. Our history is full of stupid deaths and pointless sacrifices. But it's also full of people who refused to quit when quitting was the smart move, who stood up when staying down was safer. We're not saying our way is better. We're just saying it's our way." Kravesh's mandibles clicked one final time. "Then, welcome to the Galactic Defense Corps. Try not to get the rest of us killed with your insanity." As the humans filed out, still celebrating, still bleeding, still somehow turning a military assessment into a bonding experience, I completed my final report. Assessment? Conclusion. Humans demonstrate combat effectiveness beyond projected parameters. Recommend immediate integration into frontline units. Tactical doctrine suggests they excel in situations requiring unconventional solutions, rapid adaptation, and acceptance of personal risk. They will either revolutionize our military strategy or get themselves killed in spectacular fashion. Possibly both. Definitely both. In the observation deck, the fleet officer who'd called their tactics chaos turned to me. "Those creatures are going to change everything, aren't they?" I thought about Marcus biting a Thornian war veteran, about Zara smiling while being struck hard enough to break bones, about 20 humans turning a combat assessment into a coordinated ambush against an opponent who should have destroyed them. "Yes," I said, "and I don't think the galaxy is remotely prepared for it." 3 cycles later, The humans were deployed to their first combat zone, a border skirmish against raiders who'd been harassing trade routes for 2 standard years. Conventional forces had failed to dislodge them from their asteroid base. The human squad arrived, assessed the situation, and instead of assaulting the heavily fortified position, they did something unexpected. They knocked on the door. Politely, the raiders, confused and convinced it was some kind of trick, fortified their defenses and waited for the real attack. It never came. The humans just kept knocking and talking and offering to discuss terms, and generally being so persistently, relentlessly annoying that the raiders eventually came out to tell them to go away, at which point the humans ambushed them. The entire operation took 4 hours. 0 casualties. Complete success. Kravesh, reviewing the after-action report, clicked his mandibles in what I now recognized as reluctant amusement. They knocked. They knocked, I confirmed. Weapons are useless here, I told them. You did say that. Yes. He looked at me with all 4 eyes. I was so very, very wrong. And somewhere in the galaxy, I like to imagine Marcus Kane was laughing, his strange human laugh, planning his next impossible victory, ready to prove once again that the most dangerous weapon humanity possessed wasn't technology or strength or even their disturbing tolerance for pain. It was their absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible, even when it definitely should be.